Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Nintendo Power Time Machine. This time we will be looking at Volume 58 from March of 1994, featuring Wario Land 3, Super Mario Land 3 on the front cover. Let's take a look inside and see what else this issue has to offer. The issue opens with the usual player's pulse, featuring a well-illustrated envelope art showcase and some kids dressed as Mortal Kombat characters from Halloween, fresh off the game's release in September of '93. The first major article of the issue is NBA Jam, which is probably the most essential sports game for the Super Nintendo. The magazine goes ahead and breaks down the offense and defense of each team and gives them a rating of 1 to 5 stars in each category. It also boasts about tapping into the 4-player jamming fun via the Super Nintendo's multi-tap accessory. The game features the best NBA players of the time, sans Michael Jordan, whose license to use was a bit too expensive for Midway. But what does that matter when you can put in codes to play as any number of people, from the game design team to some of the team's mascots, and even President Clinton? Besides, if you want to play a Michael Jordan game, you should pick up Chaos in the Windy City. Next up is Wolfenstein 3D. The Super NES port of the PC version features our hero, B.J. Blazkowicz, the original Bear Jew, making his way through floor after floor of Nazis on his mission to kill the evil Dr. Schaubs. Nintendo Power does what it does best here, including comprehensive maps to each floor and mission, as well as enemy info on what looks to be Dolph Lundgren from Universal Soldier, and this deathly pale fellow, who undoubtedly will show off what a man with a minigun in his chest is capable of. Now that all that killing's over with, it's time for some racing, of the FX variety, that is. With the success of Star Fox, Nintendo was quick to cash in on their FX chip with other titles such as Stunt Race, and while it couldn't quite offer up the experience that Mario Kart offered, the game is not all that bad. Yet since this is only a preview of what the final version of the game would be, Nintendo Power doesn't have much to say about it this time around, except for a detailed description of the different cars available. Oh man, talk about nostalgia. It's the 1994 Consumer Electronics Show, where the best of what we can expect to come is shown off in all of its mid-90s 16-bit glory. You got Robbie Gordon racing people in Stunt Race, playable demos of everything from NBA Jam to Super Metroid, Beavis and Butthead, even Virtual Bart, with one lone player giving it any attention. Although by this point gamers already knew Simpsons games sucked, with the exception of the arcade game, which was pretty badass. There are people pretending to be in planes and race cars, and people dressed as Speed Racer and a Klingon. Certainly this was the event of a lifetime, or at least until next year. Alright, back to more killing things. Space shooters were a popular genre in both the 8 and 16-bit eras of gaming, and R-Type is certainly one of the best. The third installment features improved graphics and additional power-ups, and the magazine covers all 6 stages of the game. All in all, it is certainly nothing new, but nevertheless an entertaining time to be had. Now we turn our attention from killing bad guys to blowing shit up in Metal Marines. This tactical turn-based wargame pits two sides against one another, and while most RTS games fail on consoles, this one isn't too bad since it is turn-based. The magazine covers the game quite thoroughly, from descriptions of the icons to the steps taken in any given turn, and even has entire pages devoted to offensive and defensive tactics, making it much easier to pick up and play. I know I did, and if you have never tried this game out and perhaps have a ROM of it, give it a try. It is more fun than the pictures lead on. Next up is the Flintstones, the treasure of Sierra Madrock. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about that. So you're about to graduate from high school, and you say you don't know what you want to do with your future? Hell, become a video game designer. It is the mid-90s after all, and it is still possible to get that dream job. There's info on curriculum breakdown and course areas, even schools sponsored by companies like Enix, Hudson, and HAL Laboratories. Or maybe you would prefer a more specialized school. Of course it would help if more than one of these 5 were in America, but hey, dream big! And insist on a mid-90s Mac next time you do some game designing. One thing you can say for sure about Nintendo Power is that they have awesome comics, and Super Metroid is no exception. Well done illustration over a number of chapters, each 12 pages long. That's more than what you would expect out of most standalone comics. Although I don't quite remember these guys or someone named Houston from the game, still this is a great inclusion to the magazine, and further helped to hype the game, which would be released later that spring. As an extra in this issue, the Counselor's Corner features an entire step-by-step guide to a great underrated RPG for the NES, Star Tropics. It goes through each of the 9 chapters of the game until you defeat the evil Zoda. This guide also helped to draw some much-needed attention to some of the last and great games to be released for the NES, and to accompany the Star Tropics 2 Zoda's Revenge walkthrough, which was also covered in this issue. Finally, more than halfway through the issue, we get to our cover story of Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3 for the Game Boy. Nintendo had big shoes to fill with the success of Mario Land 2, and capitalized on its success with the introduction of Wario. This article spans 16 pages and goes over everything in the game, from different helmet power-ups Wario can get, to complete maps and descriptions of 33 levels, all leading up to summoning a genie and finding out whether or not you collected enough treasure to earn yourself a castle. Ladies and gentlemen, your nominees for the 1993 Nintendo Power Awards. Choose your favorite in 9 different categories covering the NES, Game Boy, and Super NES. And feel free to leave your comments on which games you think should win, and very eventually I will get around to covering the issue where the results are actually announced. And check out the incentives for voting. 25 Super NES games of your choice? Damn, if only they still held contests like these. Well, that about does it for this issue. Join me next time when I'll be covering issue 59, featuring Ken Griffey Jr. presents Major League Baseball and Star Trek The Next Generation, just to name a few. See you next time on Nintendo Power Time Machine.